By now, I'm sure a lot of you guys watching this have already heard of Ascension via TikTok ad or YouTube ad or from a friend that plays WoW. And I think the number one thing a lot of people feel when they hear the classless concept is just being overwhelmed, right? It's a lot to take in, but one of the best things about Ascension is how new player friendly the server actually is. The biggest thing I think helps new players get into Ascension WoW has to be the hero architect, which you can access by hitting N on your keyboard and then clicking the hero architect. From here, you can click leveling builds if you're leveling, and you'll see in a second here, it's going to load for a second because there's so many builds you can choose from. You can even filter them by roles, by complexity, like how hard it is to play, what primary stat you want, or you can even sort it from most liked to least liked, or newest to oldest. And basically from here, you would just scroll through whatever tab you're most interested in, and you could find a build that's been optimized by somebody, and you can kind of just pick it up and play it like it's a new class, right, all together. When you combine these builds with the Mythic enchants in the game, you really do get something that feels like a completely different class altogether. But my main point being, it takes a lot of like the worry or learning curve out of getting into Ascension, because you don't need to know everything about every talent and every ability to get a class that works for you. Another big issue WoW has always had is once players hit endgame, sometimes they can feel lost, and Ascension nipped that problem in the butt by adding these hero call boards to the game. You can find the one in Stormwind right outside of the auction house, and it's the same for Horde. It looks a little different to match the city better, but right outside the auction house in Orgrimmar, there should be a hero's call board around, and when you interact with this, you'll open an interface that has a PvE, a PvP, a profession, a high risk, and a miscellaneous tab. From here, you can click on whatever tab you're most interested in doing and find quests that'll help guide you through the end game. And it basically helps you build like a foothold and understanding of how you're supposed to do end game content, while also giving you really good rewards, such as Mystic Orbs, Mystic Runes, Marks of Ascension, and Callboard Caches, which can contain very good gear that scales based off your item level. So the better geared you are, the better rewards you get. So doing these never really goes obsolete. Another cool thing about the hero call board is over here on the right, you'll see a number, quest completion options, right? If you miss a couple days worth of daily quests, it's okay, because the daily will stack up to 7 times for PvP ones. And for PvE ones, you see they stack much higher. I can do these ones 42 times. I can do the wanted one 28 times. So they are technically a daily. You get 1 chance per day to do them, but those days will roll over if you miss that day. So you're not really on a super specific time frame. If you can only play on Sunday, well, every Sunday you'll be able to do these daily quests 7 times for the last 7 days you missed, or 6 times, whatever it is, which really helps players not feel so time gated, and it really helps direct you on how to play endgame content. But obviously, you can't hit endgame content without leveling first, and Ascension has addressed all players when it comes to leveling by adding really good XP in Battlegrounds, which also have a really good queue time in every bracket. It doesn't matter if you're level 10 or level 40. If you're playing during the day and you get on here and you queue for a BG, you're going to get in that BG within like 2 to 5 minutes tops. Not only that, the XP is really, really good. It's not like, oh, you get some XP for doing BGs. No, it's a legitimate way to level. So there are players that level strictly through Battlegrounds, and you can go from 1 to 70 in a day through BGs if you have an aura of experience and experience potions. But PvP is really not for everybody, and there is obviously still the option of open world questing, which is actually really fun on this server, and it's a great way to learn the new builds you're picking or how the Mystic enchants you've acquired work. And there are times where when you play your cards right and get the right enchants and pick the right abilities, you kind of just turn into a god in the open world, which makes leveling really fun. On top of being able to pick any ability and any talent you want, it makes every level feel that more impactful. And having that level of free choice while leveling just keeps it super, super interesting, even if you're just doing, you know, Stranglethorn Veil, which has been around since 2004. Like, it's still very fun and fresh to do because of how the gameplay is on Ascension WoW. But like, honestly, maybe you're here for the custom content. Maybe you don't want to sit and do the old quests. Maybe you don't really like PvP. There is an option to do mana storms, and basically what mana storms are these tiny little dungeons that you can either do solo or do in a group. You can see here it's put me in the Botanica, and my goal is to kill Thorngrin the Tender. As you'll see here on my map, the final boss, Thorngrin the Tender, is this way. Over here you'll notice that there are 10 chaotic links remaining. Basically what these mean is if you don't kill 10 mobs, the final boss will be buffed up and be pretty hard to kill, so you tend to want to kill the mobs until this is 0, even if you don't necessarily have to. You can see now that I've worked my way to the final boss, so we'll kill him and end this level of the Mana Storm.
Down and out.
Once you beat the level, you can jump in the portal, and you'll see I went from level 296 to 297. While you're leveling, this will give you tons of really good XP, and is actually a really valid way to level by yourself or in a group of people. But let's say you make a character, you level them with a build, and you didn't really enjoy your experience, and you don't really see yourself playing that build at level 70, you can honestly just go right back into the Hero Architect and pick a new build to try at level 70, or if you feel a little overwhelmed by that, then just log out, delete your character, and pick a new build. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to delete your character ever. If you want to re-level or try a new build in the leveling scene, all you have to do is come to Chromie, and you'll see she offers you the ability to prestige. Mine is actually locked right now because I like this build, and I don't want to prestige, so I have it locked so I never accidentally prestige. But you can see you actually end up with a prestigious cachet every time you prestige. The cool thing about these caches is when you prestige, they actually contain Sunwell Plateau gear. Well, they have a chance to contain Sunwell Plateau gear. You're not always guaranteed to get Sunwell gear, but you can actually gear up for when you're level 70 just by leveling multiple times. And on top of that, you get Marks of Ascension, and you get a quest, and the quest changes every day. Sometimes it'll be do 5 dungeons, sometimes it'll be do 5 battlegrounds, sometimes it'll be do 25 quests in the open world, right? And then you hit max level and you turn it in and you get tons of Marks of Ascension. And those are important because you can use Marks of Ascension for a lot of things, but one of the things I think people use theirs on most, at least on Area 52, are the heirloom gear. This is a good way to earn heirloom gear for free, to just earn Marks of Ascension by doing your callboard quests or by prestiging or whatever. You get heirloom gear, makes leveling future characters better, which actually brings me back into my next topic, future characters. If you honestly don't like having a ton of alts, you don't need them. You literally only need one character. And this is possible because on your main character, you can actually unlock additional specializations. So as you can see here, I have my Legacy of the Arcanist build, which is the build you see here. You see my action bars. And then for my second spec, it's actually an Elemental Assassin build. So normally you would have to go create a second character and make him an Elemental Assassin, but you don't because they added specializations. Just like that, I'm now on my Elemental Assassin build. And then also, we've talked about Mystic Enchants a little bit. These also have additional specialization slots. So if I want to switch to my Mystic runes that benefit my Elemental Assassin build, I can do that as well with just the press of a few buttons. You don't need extra alts or anything. But what about professions though? You can only have 2 professions. Don't you need alts to have like extra professions? What if I have enchanting and tailoring on one guy, but I really want herbalism and alchemy on another? Well, the great thing about Project Ascension is that you can buy these things called codexes, craftsman codexes. They are kind of pricey. You're going to have to save up a bit for it, but as you can see, it unlocks a new primary profession slot. And what that means is if you buy this and use it, you can then go and train a new primary profession. So I already have blacksmithing and alchemy, but if I were to buy a codex, I would unlock a 3rd slot and I could go get enchanting. And you can buy as many codexes as you want. There's no cap to those. So if you can make the gold and save up, you can literally have all your professions and all your builds on one guy. And then as far as earning Marks of Ascension for things like heirloom gear, whatever other miscellaneous stuff you need them for, you can do it all on one character by prestiging or doing the callboard quests. It's literally like the least alt demanding server of all time. which is great because obviously you want to see your main guy progress and you don't want to have to alt and do catch-up mechanics or worry about guys getting left behind. But also, while we're on the topic of professions, we can't just pass professions without talking about the high-risk system. A lot of you may have seen ads for Ascension that talk about the high-risk system. Now, when you're in high risk, PvP is enabled while you're in the open world. And other players from your own faction can flag themselves as an outlaw and kill people of their own faction. Now, that's not a huge deal to most WoW players because they're not familiar with how the high risk system works. But as you can see, Terakar, Zangomarsh, and Nagrand are a high risk tier 1 zone. So if you're in high risk and you're in one of these zones and a player decides to kill you, you will only drop items in your bag. You can still collect some high-risk crafting materials, and you can still find some blood-forged gear, but you'll never drop your equipped gear. Then there's high-risk tier 2, where you will end up dropping items from bags or your equipped gear. That's kind of scary, right? But we'll get there in a second. Actually, we'll get there right now. Fell Commutation protects your equipped items, and you can collect high-risk crafting materials, and you can still find blood-forged gear. There's also high-risk tier 3, where you drop items from bags or equipped gear. Fell Commutation protects your equipped items, but it costs 3 times as much gold. I'll dive into Fell Commutation here momentarily. You can still collect high-risk crafting materials, but you can also now in a tier 3 zone find high-risk heroic blood-forged gear, which is basically the same thing as the blood-forged gear, but it's a heroic version, so obviously the stats are slightly better. I know we were talking about professions, but real quick, just to clear up what Fell Commutation is, you can get a greedy demon pet, and when you talk to him, you can basically provide insurance on your gear slots. So as you can see, I have all of my gear slots insured, which means if someone was to kill me in high-risk PvP, I would drop gold and not my gear. So in a tier 2 zone, I would drop 155 gold instead of my gear. And in a tier 3 zone where it costs 3 times as much, I would drop 466 gold instead of my gear. But no matter what, when you're in high risk, everything in your inventory can be dropped. You don't drop everything like you do in RuneScape, but some of your stuff will be dropped when killed in high risk. But back to the main point of professions, when you're in these high risk zones, you will see that there are these high risk events. So if you go here, this is personally what I do, and this is important because it is a great form of solo content. You can go here and you can kill mobs in this area and they'll give you high risk medals. And from those high risk materials, they've actually added high risk crafting recipes, which you'll see here. Mastercraft Agile Belt Buckle. This permanently adds 16 agility to a belt item. And they have other ones such as parry rating, strength, dodge, block value, stamina, and they even have some smaller variations which are cheaper to make, but obviously they are not as strong. Like this one only gives 12 strength instead of the 16 from the other one. The main reason I felt like this was important to cover is because high risk does play a big factor in Ascension, especially if you're into PvP, and because professions are a great version to play the game of solo content, and it's really well fleshed out. I mean, you kind of just have to try it to fully experience it, but it is really well fleshed out. It's a great way to make gold, and it's a great way to play solo. Now diving into the endgame content, I kind of want to revisit the Mana Storm, because as you can see, my best solo is 298. You get a milestone every 5 levels, right? So you don't start from level 1 every time you re-enter the Mana Storm. You actually get like a checkpoint every 5 levels. And this is really, really, really good endgame content because, for one, it's solo, or it's duo, or it's trio, or you can run it with 20 people. It's super flexible, but also it's super, super rewarding. It's really good gold, and as you progress, you'll see there are different tiers of rewards that you can get based off what level you are currently in the Mana Storm. The list is here on my screen. Feel free to pause and read if you'd like, but I am at 296, which means in this bracket, I would be receiving Mythic Karazhan gear occasionally from the loot boxes that drop when you're in the Mana Storm. So it's a good way to play solo, it's a good way to make gold, it's a good way to get gear, but also, if you manage to conquer the Mana Storm and reach level 1000, you have access to fully customized gear that can only be obtained through the Mana Storm, and it's actually completely compatible with Atlas loot, which is how we're looking at this gear right now. And as you can see, it's 170 item level gear. It's absolutely insane gear for the end game, right? Let's see what we can compare that to. Upon reaching level 1000, which you will probably have to do with a duo partner, you'll get 170 item level gear. And as you can see here, ascended level gear from Illidan Stormrage and Black Temple is only 167 item level. Yes, the Warglaives also scale with the custom raid tiers that Ascension has added to the server, which is really crazy. 179 item level Warglaives is just wow. Which is actually a pretty good segue for my next topic, which is the custom raid tiers. Obviously, they have normal raids. Obviously, they have heroic raids. Wait, is that obvious? Were there heroic raids in TBC? I don't remember. But they've also added Mythic and Ascended raid tiers to all expansion content. I believe they even exist for Classic, but obviously the Classic content is now dead because we are in the Burning Crusade. But as you can see, Karazhan, Gruul's Lair, Tempest Keep, or the Eye, Zolaman, Hyjal, Black Temple, and Sunwell all have normal, heroic, mythic, and ascended raid tiers. Obviously, ascended is the hardest. Top 1% of the server are able to clear it, but it's something to strive for. It's something to achieve, and it's just a great addition to the endgame content that kind of gives you something to always climb for, right? It's not like you can just go run normal Sunwell, get your bis, and then quit. No, you gotta get your enchants. You gotta get the right build. You gotta get the right group. And you gotta push heroics, mythics, ascended. It keeps you coming back. There's always room to improve and stride for stuff further on Ascension WoW. But raiding's not for everybody. It's super time consuming. It requires a big team. You know what doesn't? Dungeons, right? Dungeons don't really require a big team, and most dungeons are not that time consuming. Luckily for you on Ascension WoW, not only do they have normals, not only do they have heroics, they have mythic tier dungeons. But even mythic would get old after a while, right? Like, I mean, you can pretty much just walk right into a mythic 0 fresh at level 70, and if you have a decent build, you'll do the DPS you need and clear it. But Ascension strives for more than that with endgame. They want it to be more progression than that. They want to have more things to strive for. So they went ahead and added Mythic Plus. And the Mythic Plus system, I know I said this about other things like the Profession overhaul, but it is really fleshed out. I think it's every week. I'm not like a Mythic Plus like genius. I don't know. I think every week the key has like different affixes, right? So like as you can see, if you're running a +2, right now it's Fortified. At +7 it becomes Convention of the Elements. At +4 it becomes Draining Touch. At +10 it becomes Avenger. At +14 it becomes Titanic Power Infernal. And then there's further affixes for when you do better than I do, because I don't even know what they are yet. The thing that makes me say that Mythic Plus is super fleshed out on Ascension is their use of a custom currency called the Mythic Coin. Now, when you're running keys, you will always acquire something at the end of the dungeon called a Mythic Coin. You will also be awarded up to 3 caches depending on how fast you clear the Mythic Plus. So say you clear a Mythic +14 in the time allotted, you will get 3 caches that you can open. You can choose what primary stat of gear you'd like. Say you pick agility, they will give you a piece of agility gear that is plus whatever you cleared. So if it was a +14 and you choose agility from the cache, it's going to give you a +14 piece of agility gear, which is cool. But like, what do you do if you have really bad RNG? You come to Shatrath and you talk to Edrim Skysong. At Edrim Skysong, you can actually purchase a Mythic 0 version of whatever piece of gear you need. So say you're running all sorts of Mythic Plus and you don't get any of the gear you want, you don't get any of your best in slot pieces, but you get these Mythic coins. Well, you'll come to Edrim Skysong, and like every WoW player knows, you're not going to get the rings or trinkets you want ever, so you'll come here and you'll buy the trinket you want. Perhaps you need a ton of haste rating for your build. Come buy Quagmirian's Eye. But it's not just that. That's not where it stops. No, you keep earning Mythic coins, and what, are you just going to keep buying Mythic 0 gear? No, absolutely not. You can come to Edrim Skysong, and you can actually upgrade the gear you have at the cost of these tokens, right? So you can see my Hood of Oblivion is a Mythic 25. I can click on this, and then for 295 of my Mythic tokens, I can actually upgrade it to 26. The way that works is you can only upgrade it to a Mythic key you've cleared. So if you've only cleared a Mythic plus 15, you will be capped at Mythic plus 15 until you clear 16 or higher. Me personally, I've cleared all the way up to a plus 28, so I can upgrade my gear to plus 28. Which, we can make an example out of this right here, because I have a Mythic plus 28 Torturer's Mercy, and as you can see, it doesn't even pop up in the UI as upgradable, which is great, saves confusion. Also at Edram Skysong, you can see your highest Mythic level completed. This is the highest key that you've completed, right? So obviously, when you complete a Mythic 0, you get a Mythic key, so you can go push your key. You can see mine is 1 right now, but the highest I've ever gotten to was 20. So you would think, well, you can only get to plus 20 upgrades, right? No, because the highest I've actually cleared is a 28, but it was somebody else's key. So I think this is a really great way to prevent bad RNG. No matter what you do or what you get, you're always going to be earning those tokens, and you're always going to be upgrading your gear and progressing, which is just a really, really great feeling. Switching back over to the PvP side of things, when it comes to endgame, they've actually, I want to say recently reworked how you get PvP gear, but I don't know how recent it's been. I do play Ascension very off and on, but now you can talk to this guy and see these are what you used to be able to buy with Honor. And then you could talk to this girl, and Season 4 gear, the Brutal Gladiator gear, wow, it requires a certain rating, it requires arena points, but recently they've actually reworked it to where you can buy the Brutal Gladiator gear regardless of your rating for Honor. So instead of having to go grind arenas, you can buy your full Brutal set with Honor, which is actually, it's really fun for everybody, right? Obviously, like the elite PvPers, they love getting their arena gear, and they love beating up people with Honor gear because of the stat gap. But now everybody can achieve the same amount of stats through the Honor Brutal Gladiator gear. This includes weapons as well. But the endgame PvP content doesn't stop there. If you're really into Arena and you actually are curious where you stand ranked against other players that are competing for rating, there is a active arena scene. Like if you want to play 1v1 arenas, that's an option. You don't even need a teammate. I think this is actually the most popular arena game mode on Ascension WoW is the 1v1 arena. And it's super fun. It's really fun. It's not as rewarding as it used to be since the gear overhaul. I remember I had to hit a certain rating. I think it was like 22 or 2400 to be able to get head-to-toe Brutal Gladiator, and that was super satisfying to do. But nowadays, you can just get that for free through Honor and BGs and doing the Call to Arms Battleground Daily from the Hero Call board that we talked about earlier. But it still exists, and you can still push ratings. I believe you can still earn titles. I know for a fact they do seasonal resets. I mean, there's not like new gear coming out or anything like that, but they do reset people's ratings over time, because as I said, I was at 1.22 or 2400 in the 1v1 scene to get my full Brutal set, and as you can see now I'm at 0, because as I've said before, I do take breaks from the game, so they still are releasing like seasons and resetting ratings, and it's still a good competitive scene for those that like to actually engage in like more meaningful PvP content. So you probably think that covers it, right? Like we covered how great the leveling is, we covered how good the builds are, how good the gameplay is, how good the end game is, the PvE, the PvP, the profession overhauls. We covered all that. You would think, hey, we're probably done, right? Oh, my game's about to crash. Oh, it didn't crash. Wonderful. But we're not done, because they also offer a seasonal realm. Right now it's Season 9, Elune. This server is probably coming to an end. This realm is about 2 years old, and basically when this realm comes to an end, I will be able to transfer all these characters over to Area 52, and then several months after it ends, they will release a new season. And if you're unfamiliar with what the seasonal updates look like on Ascension, you guys should go to their official YouTube channel and watch it, because it contains insane updates. They really like release so much new content every time a new season comes out. But the main reason I wanted to talk about the seasons is that whenever a new season comes out, it's a fresh economy. Everybody's level 1. It's a brand new realm. So if you're one of the guys that likes to play fresh economy, if you guys like the progression, it's progressive, right? So when they drop a new realm, it'll only go 1 to 60. And you'll only be able to do dungeons for a little bit, and then they'll drop Molten Core, and then they'll drop Blackwing Lair, and then they'll drop AQ, and then they'll drop Max, and then TBC will come out, and then you'll only be able to do like Karazhan, and then you'll only be able to do whatever. Like, so they're progressive, they're fresh economy. It's actually a really good time. If you like playing fresh servers, it's honestly phenomenal. The amount of players they get when a new season drops is unmatched. I have never played a private server realm more populated than a brand new released Ascension season. It is absolutely phenomenal. But this video is getting too long. I didn't get to get as in depth with everything that I wanted to, but hopefully I've done my job of convincing you that yes, Ascension is the best server out, and yes, it is absolutely worth picking up in 2025. You are not left behind, and if you still feel like you would be left behind, as I said, there will be a new seasonal realm coming out within the next however many months, and it's just perfect. You should actually get on now and play some Area 52, get a grasp for the game, learn all these things, and then when the new season comes out, mwah, chef's kiss, dude. That shit's gonna be so fun.